Hello, welcome back to From Soft Serve. Today is a video I teased in my Lords of the Fallen video, where I said that it's probably going to be very divisive. So I'll sort of preface with it's work in progress. I'm testing it out. Kind of wanted to see just what it looked like, so I'll get your feedback because I ended up not thinking I'd like it, but I actually think it looks really cool and beautiful. But this is where the Dark Souls community cancels me officially. But anyway, yeah, here we are. Also, don't look this way. There's some geometry. I got to fix that. That's a big issue. That'll be a quick fix. I set something to render. I've been working on Darkroot Garden a bunch, and I set a bunch of stuff to have their back faces render. I stripped out way more baked lighting. There was actually a lot more remaining that I hadn't remembered. I had to set a ton of stuff to render earlier than it normally did, as every canopy, every bundle of trees in Darkroot Garden had this really ugly flat image that was a canopy, apparently, but it was ugly and it blocked your view from seeing things in the distance because PS3 360. So I removed every single canopy that was unneeded because it was just completely ugly. So anyway, let's walk into, as you'll notice, the transition now between Undead Burg and Darkroot is seamless, other than a brightness change, which is sort of the, hey, it's darker inside and it should be brighter outside, so that's just a collision change, as this is the line of demarcation between the two maps right here. And so I like that. We have my grass still, which is nice. Very nice. Very cool. We have a dynamic shadow from my character, of course, which is coming from the sky, which you might notice looks a little bit brighter. We'll get to that. Oh, I got stuck on something. Do you always get stuck there? Oh, wow. What the hell am I floating on? Okay, yeah, there's definitely something weird in the collision here where I think it thinks there's supposed to be a rock here. Well, I'll look at that. Okay, I'll have to look at that in Prepare to Die edition. But let's keep heading this way, which we have the lovely grass I added earlier, which is beautiful, beautiful, in fact. We have this, sort of sun coming down, casting dynamic shadows here. So everything looks cool thus far. Here's more dynamic shadowing. I had to set this whole map piece, this whole side of a fucking rock wall, because on the other side of it, it's just completely naked. It's completely one-sided geometry. So I had to do a ton of work. Oh shit! Really? Okay, something is turning. Something gets rendered at this point. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to fix that. But there's a lot of that issue in Darkroot Garden. But so far, I think this looks like the most beautiful area in all of Dark Souls 1 at the moment. Oh yeah, we'll go out there later. Okay. And so now, you can see off in the distance here, the Moonlight Butterfly Bridge, which I removed this nasty moss. There was this really weird hanging moss that looked copy-paste, 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 copy-paste. And most people on Twitter, well, everyone actually was like, yeah, you can remove that. That looks nasty. So I quickly removed that. There's a canopy that's normally right over here that it's like almost just slightly below our level, and it's really ugly and low resolution. And it was sort of the darkness that was hiding it. And it was blocking your view of the game rendering the floor that's actually down there, and is actually an area you can go. They just didn't want to render it. Well, it's not that they didn't want to; they just had a rendering budget, and also the trees are pretty low resolution and like 2 polygons. So I have to look into finding better trees. I might look at the Ulasil map, because that's the natural one you'd want to steal from, right? So here's where it's a pretty big deviation from Darkroot Garden. Oh, look at that. Yeah, there's another issue. Okay, yeah. Thought I fixed most of it, but yeah, it looks like there's more things that are rendered. And the player, by default, in the unmodded game, would never notice this because they had basically set a ton of things to block the view, but mostly it was super dark, and they just used a lot of trickery to block the player from noticing. So this is sort of my, because I was looking at the overall map, right? Because I've pulled Darkroot Garden into Undead Burg a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, but like a couple weeks ago. And it always struck me as odd. Well, once I had looked at it, I was like, this seems strange that like it's literally right next to Undead Burg. Like it's right there. And literally in the Undead Burg, you can see that Darkroot Garden would share the same sky and the same lens flares and sort of the same light shafts, right? It would be sharing the same sky as Undead Burg. And so just as a test, I was like, oh, okay. So let me steal the actual map piece from Undead Burg, which is the sky. Because the default one, once I raised the brightness or changed the lighting settings to essentially match Undead Burg to a certain degree, the sky that Darkroot Garden has is just like a single color. It was never meant to be seen. Like there's no clouds, there's nothing. It's really weird. It literally just has the one like little moonlight looking thing, which is really just a sun looking thing, but it was just dark around it. It's really strange. And so I actually added the Undead Burg one, which gets combined with the light shafts that are part of it. Actually, it's the same map piece. So now you get actual clouds, and it's in the same exact spot as it is in Undead Burg, so it's matching up perfectly with how it would look when you zoom out of the map and you notice that Darkroot Garden is right there, which I know that this is likely a change that will absolutely piss people off. I feel like this more than anything. It makes it look more like Ulasil, to be honest, which obviously Ulasil, was like corrupted by the Abyss, and that's where Manus was. But then our point in the DLC, spoiler alert, is we go back and we defeat the Abyss, where the history has basically said it was Artorias. And so we're sort of the unnamed hero that does it, and basically it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so I don't know, like Darkroot Garden, like they stopped the Abyss. We did that in the DLC, and so Darkroot Garden, I mean, I guess it just got dark over time, presumably. And obviously, like, time is convoluted and yada, yada, yada. Dark Souls, you don't need things to make sense logically. I fully admit that. You don't. But I sort of felt like it was an interesting thought experiment. And we've all played the unmodded game. So I guess for me, I was kind of like, well, what if it was different? Like, I don't know. And like, I think there's a lot of benefits to this. And I'm not done. There's more issues of rendering and whatnot. But like seeing the Moonlight Butterfly, little castle looking thing there, and seeing the bridge off in the distance. And there's still the fog. Obviously I didn't replace the fog effect. It's still here, but I could try to duplicate it and make it a little stronger. The depth of field is still very much in play. And so you still have a green, foggy experience. It's just much better view distance because of kind of the brightness changes more or less. But I've also had to actually make things render way farther in the distance when they were. And so to me, it almost felt like maybe it was a happy marriage between their PS3 360 limitations and the fact that they wanted Darkroot Garden to be dark anyway. Like, it's obviously in the name, but it ended up being something that worked out really well because they had limitations, and so they needed it to be dark and not render all of this, right? So, or maybe do facsimiles. I don't know. Like, I've been thinking about that, trying to have an open mind about that, but I don't know. I personally think this looks just absolutely gorgeous. I'm in love with it. It's a forest. I'm enjoying being here, but I do know there's going to be a certain subsection that's going to be like, you absolute war criminal, and that's fine. I haven't, fully settled on it or anything. This was more of a thought experiment, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought. I thought honestly it would ruin it. And well, some might think that it does, but I personally thought like that the geometry and the textures and everything would be so set on how it looked in the vanilla game. And it turns out that wasn't true. It actually worked really well. And so, I mean, just look at this view distance. Like, look how far you can see in the forest. I could add a little bit more. I'll try to add more fog. I think it's done by like a SFX or something. So, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But there are things I can do, and it's not final. But I was sort of like, I'll get a little bit of feedback about it. But the things I like about it is it's gorgeous, obviously. The baking or stripping out of the baked lighting, this allows the dynamic shadowing to be seen so much more clearly. And on its own, yeah, that's not worth the change, but it certainly is a pro in the pro and con list, right? And I just love it. Now, of course, this is another occurrence where you can like not put my rendering changes in. I think here you would actually just, I'm trying to think if you could skip the MSB file or and the draw param. Like, because I think if you do that, I've made other changes to where I don't know how that would tie together with the other levels, to be honest. Like, I can't playtest that of skipping certain of my modded files. As I hope you understand, that just isn't going to be something I can playtest. There's too many variations. I'm just not going to do that. I'm sure I'm going to have people ask me, can you do a version that does this? Can you do a version that does that? Can you have a version that turns this off? And you know, I'm open to things, but it's more difficult than I think people think it is. It's not as easy as just like, oh, I'm going to turn that off. Like, no, it's actually very difficult. And a lot of I've had to struggle to make this map function, and especially when we get over to like the Hydra and whatnot, like there's been a lot of issues. But the other difference here is that with the lighting setup difference of the light scattering and light IDs and fog IDs, that you actually get a really great reflection on the water now, and it can actually reflect like the whole environment. You can actually see it rendering the whole environment. Before it just was sort of set up to not really show that at all, because they were being rendered in the reflect cam, but with the lighting setup, it was just crushing all types of detail. You just couldn't see it. So perhaps that's what led me to it. But like, come on, entering Sif's boss room like this, I gotta look over here to make sure there's nothing that's not being rendered, as you can kind of see through there. But like, okay, so here's my other reasoning. So time is convoluted in Dark Souls, right? And as we know in like Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 2, is that it's all about cycles. And there's been countless other people doing this at the same time that we are. And people are phasing in and out. Like, we know that from the characters' dialogue, right? Or NPC's dialogue. And so we know that, and as we know, as we're playing the game, there are tons of other people doing this at the same time. And so it's all about cycles. And I guess my feeling is, if I had to come up with a lore reason for this looking different, this could be an alternate reality. Certainly. Like, time is convoluted. So I think that goes both ways. If we're going to use the time is convoluted to defend how Darkroot looks, despite it making not a lot of sense with where it is geographically, then I think that goes the other way, right? I don't think we can have it just one way, where we go, oh, that just means it should be this way. It's like, no, actually, that is a reasoning for anything can be anything. That is a yada, yada, yada. You can almost excuse anything with that description, which I like. I like that they're not beholden to, oh, this needs to make sense with this. But I think it actually allows for me to say, well, then I do want to make this make sense. Not everything has to make sense, but what if I made this make sense? That's an alternate reality. Time is convoluted. So when you're here, it's going to look more like Ulasil. Big fucking deal. I guess that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm more comfortable with that, where I'm like, oh God, look at that in the distance. Oh, that's real bad. Ooh, that's some real flickering. Okay, I got a lot of ooh, Jesus Christ. It's still flickering. Maybe I didn't walk this way. Man, what is flickering? My God. Well, the trees rendered in and kind of blocked it a little bit, but... Okay, well, I need to investigate that, but interesting. But just, God, look how gorgeous this is. And this is before I've added grass to, like, the whole level. I will be doing that. It's just gonna take a while. But just objectively, this is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm loving spending time in this level. Oh, fuck you, cats. Absolutely not. You guys are one of the worst enemies in the game. But yeah, we have dynamic shadows on the bridge. I had to strip out that. The waterfall I'm definitely looking at is like, oof, that does not look good. And I think if I just strip out the texture, it might look a lot better. I'm kind of curious if I just strip out that texture. Because that seems to be the main thing that's causing the nasty-ass look, right? Like, I think most people have commented, they're like, God, are you going to do something about that waterfall? Because it just didn't age well, right? Well, which is fine, you know. We expect that. And where's the dynamic shadow? There's the shadow. Oh, okay. So I guess the shadow is hitting like the... Yeah, but like that, that effect hasn't aged well at all. So I will definitely be looking into that. All right, let's head down here to the... also, I've had an issue with the Hydra where he just comes back, and I think it has to do with the fake one I added from Taurus Demon. I think he's coming back from that, so I might have to get rid of that. But like, oh my God, look how luscious this is. Like, you still have the fog and like the mistiness. And we're at like Niagara Falls here. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I can't see anything. Like, oh my God, I'm blown away by how fucking good this game can look. Okay, but like, yeah, the dynamic shadows from the crystal guys, and I mean, this is your bread and butter kind of rendering stuff, but my God, it just looks so good. And this is like the ultimate, this keeps going through my head of like, this is the ultimate example of not needing screen space reflections. This looks great. Like, this is not like new tech. This is old, you know, this isn't even cube maps. Like, this is gotta be planar reflections, but they look fucking awesome. And the water, like Fresnel on the surface, and I'm just in love with this area. It just looks so beautiful now. And I know I'm gushing, but like, it just looks so good to me. And I know this is where this is going to be a very contentious change, as I know I've had people go, I really wish you wouldn't make opinionated changes. And I'm like, well, I'm a human. So I am full of opinions. Every change I make is technically an opinion. It's just whether you agree with that opinion or not, right? Like, if we really want to boil it down, all of my changes are like, is the opinion, I guess they're like, well, I wish your opinion was the same one that the developers had. And it's like, yeah, the developers aren't here though. Like, I can look at what they've done, but like, they're not making these graphical changes, and some of them necessitate changes and sometimes they don't. But like, I don't know, I don't have Miyazaki to talk to. I also am not sure that Miyazaki would be, just from the interviews I've read, he doesn't strike me as the guy that would be like, I can't believe you changed this, that's outrageous. And I don't know, yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. But one benefit of the lighting change, also, I love that you can, I mean, look, you can see all the way over there. That's so cool. And then obviously there's Undead Bird, which I had to, oh my God. Wow. Dog, you missed your chance. You almost had me. I mean, the extra things you can now see in the distance is yeah, you can also see like I think that's the fake Valley of the Drakes from here. I'll have to look into that. I might be able to put the better bridge down there. But so one benefit is that the transition now from here to, this is technically the Undead Bird map now. And you go in here and it's now 100% seamless. Instead of a pretty sharp change, as obviously they were completely different levels. And there still is like a bit of a think there's a brightness change, but like nothing massive, right? And I still like that there's like this fog up above here blocking the Anorlando view. I'll definitely look into that. I might be able to bring that fog down into Darkroot Garden, perhaps, or I'm open to a lot of things. But as like a base change, I don't know. I do feel like I can defend this change with. And obviously, at the core of it, I don't need to defend it, right? Like, obviously, I don't need to. It's a mod. You don't have to download it. I do like, but I want to be attentive to where if like 99% of people said that's the fucking worst change I've ever seen. Well, yeah, okay. I mean, obviously I'm not immune to feedback. You'll see me in the comments. I like when people give me feedback and there's a suggestion and I'm like, oh shit, that's a good idea. And so I'm always open to that. I'm never just going to be like, here it is, fuck you all. No, I'm never going to do that. But I will push back on the like originalists. I just don't think that's terribly interesting. Or fun to have to align perfectly with what the original was. I don't see the point of doing that with a mod, right? Does that make sense? Like, I guess I just don't. And also, like, the base game isn't perfect. It's not. So it's not like it's this holy Bible of you can't change anything. It's like, no, I think you certainly can. So I don't know. One idea I did have, this is sort of random and not entirely connected, but let me dark sign back to Undead Parish. I noticed something. I'm sure everyone else has noticed this too. Oh, really? I'm at that. Did I rest at this? Oh, really? Okay. Well, here's the weird thing. So if I warp to, let's go to the Sunlight Altar. But what's really strange to me is you go to the Sunlight Altar, and what does it tell you? Undead Parish, which, like, yeah, I mean, I think Undead Parish is technically, like, more that way, right? But obviously, wherever you would define what is Undead Parish and what isn't. But what I find really weird is that it's called Sunlight Altar, and then, but it tells you you're in Undead Parish, but then you go to the warp menu and it says Undead Parish, but when you warp to Undead Parish, it goes to Andre's place, which is like, okay, I mean, also not technically, like, Undead Parish to me would make me think I'm warping to below the gargoyles, right? Like, that's where I think you should be able to level, right? Or warp to, right? If you're calling it Undead Parish. I don't know. That's just one where, like, I think I could easily change Sunlight Altar to actually say Sunlight Altar. Like, when you're there, that just kind of makes sense. That's a small change. And then I can change Undead Parish to say Andre's Workshop, right? Like, do you guys have ideas for what I could call? Because I think it just makes a lot more sense that it would be called something related to Andre. And yes, he's dead in my game, but I didn't want to kill him. I was alt-tabbing, and I ended up murdering him. It was very sad, and I was broken up about it. I love how they never despawn his model. That's so sad. But, like, yeah, should I call it, like, Andre's Workshop? Or, like, I don't know. That just kind of makes sense to me. Because by the time you get the warping menu, because my first thought was like, well, that seems like, what if it's a spoiler that they're saying his name? And it's like, well, no, you get the warping menu like way later in the game where you've pretty much had to talk to Andre at that point or seen him, right? So that's fine. I just feel like it makes more sense, right? If it says Andre's Workshop, so or something like that, a variation. Let me know if you have a suggestion for that. But I think that's like that's kind of a quality of life change where I think it just makes logical sense, really, to change that, honestly. So let me know. So let me know if you think I should be canceled from the Dark Souls. I'm kidding, of course. I'm joking. But let me know what you think of the change aesthetically. Vatividya, let me know if he would kill me, potentially, for the Darkroot changes. Do you like him? Do you hate him? Do you think it... I don't know. Just let me know what you think. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. A nerdy look into Dark Souls modding and changing light IDs and light scattering IDs and all the problems that come with that and the bugs. And I do want to like put out a new build of the mod soon. Darkroot has taken a lot longer. So I want to make sure it's, because that's been like a pre-existing issue for the last like weeks long, or the last like 5 releases, I think, is that Darkroot's been kind of fucked, and I just have been kind of lazy and I haven't fixed it, and that's my bad. So, but when I went there to fix it, I ended up going, oh wow, there's a lot more to do. And adding grass and backface rendering, and I got to change this mesh, and oh, there's this distant one, and then this isn't rendering, and oh my god, okay, I got to fix that, and then all the tree canopies, and then there's been just oodles and oodles of changes that I've had to make, and some I didn't have to make, and I just wanted to. So, yeah. Hopefully you really like a nerdy guy pedantically ranting about stuff. Because I actually do care about the game a lot, and I care about the game world a lot. And so I hope that you can sense that I put a lot of thought into it. You may not agree with where I end up, but I do actually think about the world reasoning and the lore, and that, like, I do genuinely, this is my favorite game of all time, so I promise you I don't do this stuff terribly lightly. I do care about it a lot. I just if it does seem like it's ever flippant, it's not. I do think about it a lot, and I care about it a lot. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. We've had a ton of new subscribers. I do have a Lords of the Fallen video that went up yesterday. If you want to see kind of the first 2 hours and see if it's a game for you. I think that's a good video to kind of see, okay, here's the first 2 hours. If you don't like it in the first 2 hours, you're probably not going to like the game, right? And I think that's fair. And I overall enjoyed my time. So I'm going to keep going. I've kind of hit a rough patch currently where I'm like, don't like this area, but I'm going to keep going. Because I enjoy, a decent chunk of the things about the game. It's just currently I'm having a rough patch where I'm like, I hit their version of Blighttown, but it's like less understandable and more confusing and pretty frustrating. So I'm trying to push through that to really get to some where I hear the game just gets really amazing. So that's kind of where I'm at currently, if you want a progress update. And maybe like this video if you enjoyed the nerdiness, and get your cup of coffee, your little Dark Souls ASMR session in the morning, and maybe share it if you have Dark Souls communities or friends or people that that or mutuals that would like this kind of content. I think we're growing the community faster than I ever thought we would. I genuinely, the number of subs that this channel has blown my mind. I do not understand what's going on. So I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is ranting and showing Dark Souls 1 modding shit. So, yeah, if you like that, there's a whole lot more coming up. So, I'll see you then. As always, praise the sun. And hopefully today, maybe this video has helped you be a little bit more grossly incandescent. That's the goal. That's what I want for you. And if not, then I hope it will at some point. I don't know. But I'll see you down in the comments. I'm wondering, I'm really curious what everyone's thoughts are going to be. So I'll see you down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.